pioneers and patriots, the celebration of our great country's 250th birthday. It's awesome that we've gotten this far, isn't it? Hey, all day long, you're going to be watching people performing and having a good time in front of you. Your encouragement helps them. Please, please.
Slowly fading out of
Please feel free. It's going to be just as smooth all day long, baby. All right. Also, please know that everything is being videotaped today. So if you owe alimony or if you're wanted by the government, please straighten your mustache and sit in the back. All right, friends. Get this program underway. Please welcome for the Pledge of Allegiance, Brant King. Yes, you may stand. You may remove your hat.
Pledge allegiance to the flag to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with God Bless America, Ms. Carol Volpe.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, wide with
Letitia King will now lead us in prayer.
Howdy!
Be careful.
I want to introduce to you Letitia, and she's going to have our prayer. Howdy! We do thank God for our America. And I would like to say that I'm so grateful to live in this great country. And let's bow our heads with a moment of prayer. Dear Lord, how we thank you for this United States of America and how we are so privileged to live in this great country. We ask, Lord, now that you would bless each one of our characters. Help us, Lord, with our nerves. And we pray, Lord, that you would bless our audience, Lord, and that we will always be gracious and kind. Thank you. Amen. Amen.
All right, my friends. The role I play in most of these is Matthew, the sexton, the caretaker of the cemetery. The people you're going to see up here today are telling your stories. They're the stories of our great country. They're the stories that make us who we are. Leading us along the way is our dear, dear friend, Miss Jean Garrett. Please.
I can't hear you. I'm just so proud to be here. I want to tell you a little bit about what happened, and I want you to visualize there is no hotel, there are no buildings, there are no roads, there's only a few pathways where the animals would stroll, and where the Indians came years ago. We want to tell you a little bit about the history of Beersheba and our actors today, and there was no way for us to do everybody that played an important part. But every family that's from this area played an important part. Imagine that nothing here, and our ancestors, when the land opened up in Tennessee, they came this way. They came over those mountains, and they didn't have trains, planes, and automobiles. They had horses, and they had their feet, and they might have had their wagons. And it was a long stretch to this area. Most of our ancestors in the Beersheba group settled down in the Collins River. They forged an area. They built a life there. There were the browns and the greens. Don't confuse that with crayons. There were the Shoats and the Dykes. There were the Dugans. There were Fulks and Hobbs. There were kings and knights. That sort of sounds like royalty to me. What do you think? There were Langfords and Lanes. And some of you may be off of the Nunleys. The Nunleys came here in the late 1700s along with Cherokee, and they settled on what we know as Nunley Mountain now. After they got settled, they went back home and got their wives and families. All of these people were imported in our history. Now, I didn't mean to leave out, and I haven't left them out, the Grosses and the Keans. They came from South Germany into Pennsylvania. They were what was called Anabaptists. Now, don't confuse that with our Southern Baptists and other Free Will Baptists and those. Anabaptists were our Amish and Mennonites. But then they came this direction and settled down in the College River Valley also. Our families, some are still here, some were adventurous and went on west. Oh, and I need to tell you, down in Savage Gulf, there were the Tates, the Thompsons, and the Savages. Now,
Some of you may have heard, and you may not have, but the late 1800s and early 1900s, well, let me back up a minute. Have y'all heard of Idaho potatoes?
Yes.
Well, those Tates and Thompsons and Browns and Greens and Savages went to Idaho and started the potato business.
Yay.
Some of the descendants of our ancestors became preachers and teachers, lawyers. We even have NASA engineers that came from here. We had a great artist whose work showed in the New York Museum. His collection is now at the Tennessee State Museum, but they only pull it out for special events. And there was one man who only had a third-grade education, but he loved math. He built a sundial right here on Beersheba Mountain, over in the Panhandle, that you could set your watch by. Those are our ancestors, and many, many more.
I'm Francis Brown. Everybody calls me Fanny. In 1809, when I was 4 years old, I came with my father, Thomas, from the Indian Territory of South Carolina to the Indian Territory of Tennessee. My grandfather was John Brown, a Scotch trader, and my grandmother was one half Cherokee. Our farm was in Warren County near my uncle Absalom Brown and my cousins. We were called the Indian Browns. Long before we came here, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Chickasaw Creek, and maybe others who hunted here in a village 2.5 miles southwest from where we're standing right now, most likely where Kevin and Amanda Myers live right now, as they found lots of Indian relics on their property. The trails came from the east of the mountains to the back road off the mountain to Big Spring onto Collins, then the Caney Fork. But did you know long before Native Americans were here 3,500 years ago, would you believe that they were Native Americans here in Grundy County 3,500 years ago? That's long before our country was formed 250 years ago. Wow. I met Philip King after he came here from North Carolina. We married and he moved in with me and my dad. We always lived on our farm, which was in Warren County, but it became Grundy County in 1844, then it was Cherokee County, but we never moved. Some of our descendants went to Oklahoma or the Cherokee, but many of our descendants live right here in Beersheba today.
Hello, everyone. I am Beersheba Porter Kane. I am the wife of McMinnville merchant John Kane. One day in 1883, I came on horseback with my husband across the mountain. We stopped the trail. And while they chatted, I followed the mountain pathway and found Beersheba Springs, so I watered my horse. The bluff site here above the Collins River Valley became the home of this noted watering place, and it would soon come to bear my name, Beersheba Springs. The path over there's a balancing rock from the cabin to the spring. Once again, in the same direction. That's the arm field purchased and lived in He was. I don't know why we keep them in the same path back and forth.
I'm John Armfield. I was driving a stagecoach from Virginia when Isaac Franklin was a passenger and asked me to join him in the slave trade business.
All right, isn't that always the way? Waiting for the wife here? I'm Miss Martha Armfield, formerly Martha Franklin, daughter of John Franklin from Sumner County in Tennessee.
After a number of years, I decided to leave the business and build a resort where families could get away from the early city, the heat, and the diseases like TB, smallpox, and cholera that spread in the summer. President Polk suggested I consider Beersheba Springs, where they were hunting cabins for guests. I purchased a business called the Beersheba Springs Company Incorporated in 1839, owned by George R. Smart and Dr. Alfred Payne of McMinnville. They had established early accommodations, including log cabins and a tavern, to develop Beersheba Springs as a summer resort destination. Two of the cabins are in the quadrangle beside the hotel I built. Another is known as the Cockrill Cabin. The one we know is the Mayhew Cottage.
Now, I told my husband, Mr. Armfield here, that I would not move to Beersheba Springs unless the outhouse was heated. Now, they did provide heat, but it was a 7-holer. Can you imagine that? So I did not share that with anyone when I was out there, but it was always warm in the winter, and I made sure of that. Now, let me tell you something about our hotel here. So when guests would arrive, that stagecoach driver would come up the mountain, and he would blow his horn however many times there were guests. So if he blew his horns 5 times, that meant I needed to get ready for five guests. And we made sure that they ate off the finest china, and we had a French chef. And then after dinner, they would dance to the Virginia Reel, and then after that, they would go on the porch, and they would feel the cool breezes and the gentle breezes. And then some of them would hike over to Stone Door. And Stone Door is only about a mile down that way. So they would really enjoy the hotel here. Now, let me tell you, Mr. Armfield here was also the postmaster. And the cubby holes in the lobby next to the East Fireplace is where he would put the mail. And so all Beersheba residents had to do was put their name in Beersheba Springs, and they would get their mail.
I'm not that loud. In building the resort, I sold lots and built summer homes. Homes were built for Bishop Otley of the Tennessee Diocese of the Episcopal Church and Bishop Polk of the Louisiana Diocese. It was here at the hotel that they had planned to put the Episcopal School for Boys in Beersheba. But land was available in Suwanee, and it was decided to build it there. It was later named the University of the South and later became co-ed. Bishop Leon Des Polk graduated from West Point along with Generals Grant, Lee, and others. When Polk returned to his home in Virginia, at his first Sunday back into his home church, he knew he was called to become a priest and not lead the military. However, when the Civil War broke out, General Lee called upon Polk to lead troops. General Polk led his troops bravely and was killed at Stone Mountain. He was known as the Fighting Bishop. His home in Beersheba is now known as the Howell Cottage, that Mama Howe purchased from my wife in 1873.
All right. So now, however, the individual soldiers of the North and South, they would go by our home to join the regiment, and I would make sure that they had nice hot coffee to carry with them. Now, there was this one time, this young boy, he hid above the dining hall when he saw a few cavalry coming and watched as they rode their horses up and down the dining room, throwing my fine china on the ground. Can you imagine that? They also rode their horses on my porch, Now, I also hid the silver in the cistern so that those soldiers and Yankees and carpetbaggers would not take it. And that silver is still around today in Middle Tennessee, where my predecessors have it.
The Civil War began while we were at the hotel, and the hotel no longer operated as the Grand Resort that it had been. There were no wars in Grundy, but there was one scrimmage near Tracy.
And unfortunately, my dear husband over here, after his untimely death, I moved back to Virginia to be with some family. And then when it came my time to go, I was buried back in Franklin County, Tennessee.
The war ended, and we settled to a quieter lifestyle. We'd have a few guests, but after the war, our former guests were broke and could no longer make the trip. I died. I'm not alive anymore. And I'm buried in the Armfield Cemetery here in Beersheba.
And as I already said before, I was just so sad to see you go, but we are now together up in heaven. Thank you.
Well, hello, I'm Virginia French. My husband and I, we lived in McMinnville, and I was a writer. But I had not been well for quite some time, and my husband thought it would be great for us to move up to Beersheba Springs and bring the children where it was a quiet and tranquil life. And when I arrived here, I looked around and I thought, if I cannot write in this beautiful place, I could not write at all. But then the terrible war came, and soldiers would pass through, and Miss Armfield, she made sure that they had coffee to take with them, whether they were for the South or the North. One she agreed with, and the other she didn't dare want to antagonize. As the war progressed west of McMinnville, the Union was going through there, and they really ransacked the place, and they burned furniture to keep warm, and they confiscated whatever they could find on the farms. Troops came from Jasper over the mountain, going down Northcutt's Cove, turning into Irving College and taking Hills Creek Road right to the end and turning right towards Dunlap. There was one day when some Confederates came dressed in Union uniforms. They demanded a meal, but they realized we recognized them. With their family nearby, though, we pretended not to even notice who they were. They could tell that I could tell that they were sorely embarrassed and offered to pay us for the food. We refused. A general came by with some of his troops, and we fed them. Mr. Armfield offered hospitality, though he really didn't want to. A couple of soldiers piffered through Tom Ryan's room and set it on fire right here in this hotel. And my son quickly got a jug of water and put it out, or it would have surely burned this entire hotel down. The war certainly changed the tranquility of the mountain during this time, and we never knew if we'd be awakened in the middle of the night by soldiers raiding our homes. We were mostly left with just women and children here. Several residents had already moved away. When the war had ended, we decided to go back to McMinnville, and we hired several people, men to help us, and some wagons to carry all of our goods back to McMinnville. And the trip home, it was very hard. It was very hard. We were met with all kinds of challenges, and our trip started early in the morning, but it didn't end until bedtime that night. And this was in July. It was dark by the time we got home. It took all day long. When we got back home, I settled back and I began my writing again. And you know what? You can purchase my Beersheba diaries. Here they are. This is a copy of it. You can purchase my Beersheba diaries here. I think we may have some of them here tonight, if you would like. It's a very good read.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good to be with you tonight. Hope everybody's doing well. My name is Private Russell Lassiter Brown. I was born in Warren County, Tennessee in 1842, and am the second child born to William Sanford and Nancy Dykes Brown. My siblings are Jackson Van Buren Brown, James K. Brown, William Almond Brown, Norris Burr Brown, Mary E. Brown Hills, Hezekiah Wesley Brown, Susanna Brown Morton, Linda Virgil Brown, and Annie D. Brown. My family and I lived off what is now the Backbone Road halfway down to the big spring in the valley. My father, William Sanford, was a farmer, a preacher, and a register of deeds. He was also the first Methodist circuit rider on the mountain. He would ride his horse around the mountain down to Brown's Chapel Cemetery, crossing Jonathan Creek, to preach at his little church. In their later years, my parents signed the deed to the cemetery to the Methodist Episcopal Church because of their love for the Lord and their furtherance for the Christ kingdom, to always be used as a church to anyone who wished to be buried there. My dad would often take his rifle with him as he ventured through the woods to preach, in order to kill deer and take it home to the family so we can eat. I remember one time he shot a deer on his way to church, took it off his horse and placed it next to the pulpit while he conducted the service. Oh my God. He then put it back on his horse and before he started to go home. Someone asked him, said, "Sanford, why'd you do that?" He said, "Because I didn't want the critters to get it on the way back before I could get it home." My grandfather, perhaps you've heard of him, Absalom Brown, who was the preacher at the Shiloh Church in what is now Highway 56 on the way to McMinnville. His sons and grandsons started a lot of the Methodist churches in the area back in the early 1800s. I am very proud to say that my grandparents, Absalom and Mary Jane Polly Green Brown, were among the first people to settle the Collins River area in Warren County. And I'm also very proud that my second great-grandfather on my grandmother's side, William Dyke Sr. and his wife, Susanna Langford, were among the first families to settle our great state of Tennessee. Now, enough about my parents and grandparents. Let's talk about me. At the outbreak of the War of Northern Aggression, me and my older brother, Jackson Van Buren, enlisted together into Confederate service on May the 18th of 1861 in Company H of the 16th Tennessee Infantry Regiment, which was part of the Army of Tennessee commanded by Brigadier General Albert Sidney Johnson. During the Kentucky campaign, me and my older brother Jackson were both wounded at the Battle of Perryville and taken to the hospital in Harrisburg. During that battle, I was unfortunately shot through the left hip and witnessed my brother being wounded during the fighting as well. Sometime later, I was captured by enemy forces and exchanged at City Point, Virginia in 1863. While in captivity, I had a long spell of fever and hurt absolutely all over. It was a bad time. I was also sick with a fever during the Chill Mountain Campaign, but recovered from that and honorably fought in the battles of Franklin and Nashville, Tennessee. After the Battle of Nashville, while in Columbia, my feet became so worn and raw from marching and the elements that they were bleeding quite badly, and as a result, I was discharged from Confederate service and headed home. Before my journey back to Grundy County, a doggone blue-bellied Yankee of all people bought me a pair of shoes. After the conflict, I married Janie Lockhart of Grundy County, and together we had several children. After living a long and eventful life, I passed away at my home on May 14, 1932, due to an infection from being bitten by one of our family hogs named Charlie. My wife, Janie, passed away on July 5th, 1953, and was the last widow of the 16th Tennessee Infantry to file for a pension. My wife and I are both buried together at Browns Chapel Cemetery in Palmer, Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, that about wraps it for me. I appreciate you being here very much, appreciate your kind attention, and I want to say God bless you, God bless America, and God bless Grundy County, Tennessee, my home and native land.
Hey everybody, my name is Nathan Bracken. My wife's name is Henrietta Bracken. We were slaves on the Bracken Plantation in Sumner County, Tennessee, and later part of the Isaac Franklin estate. Mr. Franklin was Miss Armfield's uncle. And when Mr. Franklin passed away in New Orleans, his body was preserved in a barrel of whiskey and brought back to Tennessee. We didn't have funeral homes back then. Mr. Armfield was the executor of Franklin estate, and he purchased our family after Franklin died. Mr. Armfield wanted to establish a resort in Beersheba Springs and had me driving the property he purchased from the Beersheba Springs Company Incorporated. It had been owned by two McMinnville businessmen who had hunting cabins for rent here. Mr. Armfield purchased a bunch of acreage along with those hunting cabins and built this beautiful hotel. People came from places like Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, all the way down to Florida in the summers to get away from the heat. My family lived on the Armfield property and would drive the Armfields wherever they needed to go. It's true. Miss Armfield would not move up here unless Mr. Armfield promised that the outhouse would be heated during the cold weather, so I made sure there was always a fire to keep it warm. We were free from slavery under Mr. Armfield long before the Civil War, and he paid us to work for him. When he died, we had enough money to purchase our own home. Nancy Woodley lives there now. In our new home, the children in Beersheba gather on my porch. We tell stories about my younger life and stories from the Bible. And they called me Uncle Nathan. Me and Mr. Armfield were such good friends. I'm buried right over there in the cemetery, so if you want to come see me, that's where I'll be.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marshall Whitman. My parents were Elder and Maggie Walker Whitman. My dad loved to do woodwork. He made a lot of furniture. He made rocking chairs, benches. He carved owls, rabbits, quails. A lot of family and friends still have some of his items today. Sanford McGee had one of the fiddles my father made till someone stole it. Naturally. I was born 1905. I married Lucille Green Whitman in 1937. We had 5 children, Shirley, Claude, Lonnie Bud, Carrie, and David. We lived at the same place on Gracie Ridge Road for 58 years. I drove a coal truck some. I also worked at the Colonial Shirt Factory in Altamont. I even cut stave bolts up in the Stone Door Gulf. And stave bolts is what they made barrels out of. Give me just a second. So many of the people don't know my grandfather. He rode a tire from Beersheba Springs to McMinnville, Tennessee. So in 1958, Mitchell Hobbs had a flat tire on his truck. He didn't know how to get it fixed. Someone offered to roll it to Mac Melville and get it fixed for $50, but Mitchell wouldn't pay that. So then he offered $25, so he offered $25 to roll it to Mac Melville. And my grandfather I took it up. Someone heard about it and called WBMC radio station in McMinnville what I was doing. They came and followed me to Hobbs' Tire Shop, broadcasting it live all the way. Folks heard about it and would come out and give me water and snacks. I'd roll it a while, then I'd stop and rest a bit. It took me 13 hours and 45 minutes to get it there. Now, when I got to Hobbs' Tire Shop, they recapped the tire for free. A lot of people didn't think I would make it, but they were glad that I did. I made about $1.80 an hour, and that was a whole lot of money back in 1958. So early in 1934, there was a man named Beersheba Springs, and a woman came to Beersheba and moved in a small shack over on Grassy Ridge Road. We did a lot of things together. I cleaned his guns, take him supplies that he asked for, and helped him dig a well. They stayed around for a while. One day they went to McMinnville and bought a new Dodge. And of course their check bounced, but they still had a new Dodge. They stayed around for several months. Not long after they left, the FBI shot Public Enemy #1 in front of the Biograph Theater in Chicago, Illinois. And his face was all over the newspapers. That's when we found out who he really was. We had Public Enemy #1 living right here in Beersheba. And I'll leave y'all at that, and I'll be at the Hunterwater Cemetery.
There he is. That's him right there.
There he is.
Good evening. My name is Leonard Tate. I was known as a man of few words, so I'll keep it short. I lived in the small brown house on the hill just down the road. Every life has a landscape, and mine was chiseled out of the quiet woods and steep ridges of Beersheba Springs. I never sought the bright lights of the city or the loud applause of the world. To me, peace was always found working with my hands and listening to the wind move through the trees of this Cumberland Plateau. Even when World War II took me far across the ocean to the deserts of North Africa with the Air Force, my mind never truly left these hills. I'm a quiet man by nature. Some might say shy. But my pen is how I spoke to the world, and more importantly, how I defended the people I love. Outsiders often see our worn hands and our modest homes and think they have figured us out. But they only see the surface. In one of my poems, I wrote, "We are mountain people. We are a boorish set," they tell us. Hard-bitten, coarse, shallow and brawling as the mountain streams, but with moral friable as our sandstone. All my life I've wanted to tell them. Yes, we are mountain people, that mountain streams have pools of deep quietness, and that beneath the sandstone of our hills, there's granite. That granite is our resilience. It is our quiet dignity. It is the unspoken grace of a mountain mother, and the steady endurance of a spirit of community that stands together through the hard seasons. Publishers have reached out to me over the years wanting to package my words for the masses. But a man must know his own heart, and mine always preferred the quiet. I didn't write for fame or fortune. I wrote because the mountains demanded it, and because my neighbors deserve to have their deep, quiet pools of beauty recognized. They called me the poet laureate of the Cumberland Plateau. We are not shallow. We are not fragile. We are the Cumberland Mountain people, and beneath our soft sandstone, we are made of granite.
Beersheba Springs, thank you all for coming down this afternoon. This has been an effort of the community, your community. These are the stories that make up your community, the pioneers who persevered, the patriots who have championed the Americas that are 250 years old this year. Please know that the stories you are living and your neighbors around you and the love that you show each other makes this community work, makes this country work, and keeps us all together. We thank you all for coming down. Before we go away, we want to wish a happy birthday to Brian Richardson and thank our good folks from the fire rescue. God bless them for taking care of us up here. This all came together under the guidance of Miss Jean Garrett, Carol Volpe, Leticia was back here. All these players dressed up for your pleasure today in this fine, cool afternoon. I've been Matthew. I'm your cemetery caretaker. Not really, but I've had the pleasure of being involved in all this. Thank you so much for being here today. Please stick around. We're happy to hang out with you for a little while. Thank you. Hold on, there's one missing. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, John Dillinger's girl. Thanks again, guys. It's been a wonderful community coming together to make this happen. We're so happy to be with you guys. Don't forget Grundy County Jam, kids.